You're listening to the Bear Down Chicago podcast with Logan Bradley, Ryan Dangle, Patrick Sheldon, Brendan Shagrew, and Jack Wright. The Bear Down Chicago podcast. Yeah, we're that Bears podcast.
All right, folks, welcome into another edition of the Bear Down Chicago podcast. I am your host, Ryan Dangle. Now, if you want to find me on Twitter, you can hit me at Ryan Dangle. That's Dengel. I'm going to bring in the assistant editor of Bears Wire. That's Brendan Shagrew. If you want to find Brendan on Twitter, it's at Brendan Shagrew, Sugrue. Brendan, are you getting ready to write 4 billion articles for the Chicago Bears this season?
Yes. Oh my God. I wrote, I think like 5 yesterday, and I was up till 3 in.the.morning rewatching Tyson Bagent highlights. That's how you know. I had a moment. I was drinking a beer and I was writing, and I just am re-scrolling through all these Tyson Bagent highlights for preseason. And I just had a moment. I'm like, man, what am I doing? Like, I mean, I'm happy to do it. It was fun. You know, yeah. I appreciate everyone reading my stuff, but I'm like, it's 3 a.m. on a Saturday night. What am I doing there?
You've been on TV again, dude. We haven't talked about that yet, which we will talk a lot about this later after we get to our phenomenal guests. You got to go back to NBC Sports Chicago. What was that like?
It was awesome. I really honestly did not think that I would get a call back so soon. Shout out to Anthony from NBC Sports for letting me know. Yeah, it was a lot less nerve-wracking the second time. Plus, I didn't have as much time to kind of worry about it because I heard about it on Monday and we got it done on Tuesday. So I'm sure we'll talk more about it, but it was really cool. And I'm just always appreciative of those opportunities.
Very, very cool. Let's bring in Jack Wright to this show. If you want to find Jack on Twitter, it's at BearDownJack. I also want to bring in Patrick Sheldon. If you want to find Patrick on Twitter, you can hit him at P_Shells. Now, boys, we haven't had Logan in a while. So Shells and Jack, we brought in from the Ohio University, a sports journalism student. He also runs Cubs Legion, which is a huge thing on, so you guys can talk baseball maybe later after we get to talk to James. I'm sure Thomas would appreciate it. Thomas from Cubs Legion. Thomas, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How is everyone here?
Fantastic. We got a Cubs win, man.
Yeah, Cubs are on a roll. Yeah. Won't go too into it, but Cubs Legion is a fan page that I've been running on Instagram for a little over 4 years now, and I've just been posting highlights, game recaps, trades, news, just on that page. It's all mine ever since the beginning of high school, and I've also been running my own podcast called the Cubs Win Podcast, along with another guy that does another fan page surrounding the Cubs. So I've kind of been using that as an outlet to build my resume for sports journalism. And I think that helped me get into some of the journalism programs in school. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Thomas, we're stoked that you're joining the crew, and we couldn't have had a better guest in which to do it. Now, I am absolutely stoked. Not only is this guy a phenomenal writer for The Athletic, James Boyd is a friend of the podcast through our very good friend, JJ Stankovitz. James, how are you? How is life treating you?
I'm doing good. There is no sort of storylines here in Indianapolis, of course. You got, rookie quarterback. You got JT. Is he in? Is he out? Those things going on. But it's been a lot of fun, and I have been very grateful for the opportunity.
Okay, so I've got first question out of the gates, not football related at all. Okay, you're from Romeoville. You're everything at Romeoville kid, but you're a Colts fan. Man, talk to me about this. How did that whole thing come to be?
No, so I'm not anybody's fan, actually. I grew up in Romeoville, Illinois, obviously. And it was a joke because everyone from where I'm from said they're from Chicago to sound cool. And so I changed my name to Romeoville Kid when I was in college. And I just figured, I'm going to be proud of the suburbs. It was a good suburban life, no shame in it at all. And it kind of just stuck. And I got my first job out of college to graduate from the University of Illinois as a high school sports reporter in Northwest Indiana. Shout out to the Region 219. And then I basically worked my way down further into the state. So not a fan of the Bears or the Colts or anybody anymore. I just do the job as best as I can. And I enjoy storytelling more than sports. It just happens to be in the sports lane. So I'm enjoying myself a lot, but no, definitely not a Colts fan. And I guess I haven't been a Bears fan since I was 15 maybe or something like that. So about 10 years out of that.
So, sorry, one more question, boys, before we hop into Colts Bears questions. Has it lost its luster then at all? The being around professional sports and doing all that stuff?
No, not for me at all. I think it gives me more appreciation for the athlete and what they go through, if that makes sense, because you see them on a day-to-day basis more often. I did Pacers for a season, so I did NBA. Got a chance to talk to LeBron James, talk to Steph Curry, talk to Giannis, and then go over to the NFL side, you get a chance to be in the same building as Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes and obviously the Colts players, and you start to see how much they put into the game. So I think for me, it just gives me more empathy and compassion towards what they go through, whether it's ups or downs. And I definitely enjoy it, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I know it's a lot of work. You don't get to go to the games for free and do nothing, but it is fun.
All right, so let's talk Bears. Let's talk Colts. So the Colts bring in new coach Shane Steichen. Your thoughts so far on his tenure as head coach for the Indianapolis Colts?
Yeah, so I guess this will be right up you all's alley. I think bringing Shane Steichen in made it possible for the Colts to draft Anthony Richardson and feel confident in his development. And I think that Anthony Richardson is further along, or at least has a better starting point, that is, than Justin Fields had when he started out as a dual-threat quarterback. He has a coach that's, inclined to set those things up for him. He has a better supporting cast, better offensive line, better playmakers and stuff like that. So I think that Shane Steichen is the perfect guy to bring along. And also, having been, Jalen Hurts' coach and seeing the ascension that he's had throughout the NFL, Colts fans are hoping for the same thing that happened here in Indianapolis. And I'm sure Bears fans hope the same thing as far as Justin Fields, because I believe all three quarterbacks, Justin Fields, Anthony Richardson, Jalen Hurts, they all have similar skill sets, but they're all sort of on different marks of the same path. Jalen Hurts is like best case scenario. Justin Fields is like, you're showing me something, show me more. And then AR is just starting out.
James, it's great to talk with you. First off, I wish I could just take this podcast off the rails and start talking NBA after you just said all that with covering the Pacers and everything. But I won't. I'll be a good podcast host. So talking about Anthony Richardson, what have your thoughts been on him so far? Seeing him through minicamp, OTAs, and training camp so far, and then were you surprised to see him named the starter so soon? And then a bonus question. I know this is loaded, but were you even surprised that the Colts picked him since there was so much smoke around everybody else, like Will Levis?
All right, so I got a story for you guys. At the Combine, I asked Anthony Richardson. This was after people were asking him, all these softball questions. And he's like, yeah, I called myself Cam Jackson back in high school because, people thought I played like Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson, and everyone loved his answers. And I was thinking to myself, wait a second, this guy wasn't as good as these guys in college. And, talking about Heisman winners and future NFL MVPs. And I'm not hating on the guy, but I'm standing there like, no, we're not any of these guys in college. So I guess me being a jerk, I was like, hey, man, some of these teams look at you sort of as a project, so what do you think you could bring a team right now versus in the future? And he hated that project word. He had me repeat the question like 4 times. You're in this huge scrum with 50 media members. And so I finally spit it out loud enough for him to hear it, I guess. And he's like, I don't even know what that means. I'm like, okay, shot me down. And then the next guy asks, okay, well, you were just a 1-year starter at Florida. How do you feel about, these teams questioning your experience? And he's like, he turns back to me away from the other guy. And he's like, this guy called me a project, so I guess I got left to work on. And I was like, what the heck? So, I mean, at the time, no trades had happened yet. So I didn't think that the Colts were going to draft. It wouldn't have changed my question, but it became sort of like this joke as things started to materialize. Like, wait a second, the Colts might actually pick this dude. So when they picked him, all of the fans here were like, oh my gosh, he's going to kill you when he sees you. And so when he got drafted and they brought him in the next day, to meet the media, I said, hey, Anthony, I'm the guy who called you a project or asked you about being a project at the Combine. He's like, oh, I remember. And it was the funniest thing ever because he wasn't mad about it. He was honestly just making a joke. The entire room laughs, but we've been, I think, pretty good as far as just asking real questions, getting real answers. And he's shown a lot of humility as far as he has to work on a lot of things, but he doesn't shy away from being different. He says it all the time. I was blessed with a great physical ability. I've been blessed with great talent, but I have to work extremely hard to get to what I want to get to. So I've been very impressed with him so far. A lot of the stuff you've seen in college has translated over to the NFL, the big play ability, the stuff you can't teach, the alien-like stuff that he does, but also some of the tendencies, with, missing high on some of his throws and the inaccuracy, stuff like that. You kind of scratch your head. So he's still raw, but very talented, very humble, and very gracious. Didn't beat me up next time I saw him, so that was cool. And we actually ended up playing basketball together at the Jim Irsay YMCA here in downtown Indianapolis. I went there one day randomly. He just walked in with a couple of his friends, and we played pickup basketball 5-on-5, so that was pretty fun.
Well, who won?
His team won. This is actually hilarious. This team that we were playing, right, they were pretty good. They had all the best players in the gym that day. And so they had been running the court, right? And then one of their guys ended up dropping or leaving. I got to go, whatever. They immediately picked up Anthony Richardson to stack the deck even more. Like a team full of probably 3 6'2" dudes, 1 6'4" guy who's an alien, and another guy who's 6 feet. And I'm 5'10". And I think we lost 12-11 or something like that. It was a pretty close game. But the first play, they threw him an alley-oop, and he caught and reverse dunked it from midcourt. They threw it up there. He catches it, dunks it. And I'm like, I can't do anything with that. But also, everyone was joking about it, oh, man, you don't want to get dunked on. No, I didn't want to get near him. Seriously. I don't want you to twist an ankle. I don't want you to, tweak anything. And then you're the reason, I'm the reason you're not available for training camp or something like that. But it was really fun. And it kind of lets you know how young he is, because I guarantee you, I posted a video of him dunking in one of the pickup games after the gym closed. I was like, if I do it now, everyone's going to flood this place. Did it afterwards, and I guarantee you the Colts probably saw that and were like, yeah, this is the last pickup basketball game of your life, young man. But it was fun, man. He's a really good dude, really humble, and again, just very self-aware. I think the team feels more pressure about him succeeding than he actually does. He seems to let stuff roll off his back, whether he has a good day at camp, bad day at camp, interception, touchdown. He's just the same.
There was so much great news coming out of camp this week. What stood out to you specifically about the joint practices this week?
I think I paid a lot of attention to Anthony Richardson, like I said, Justin Fields as well, because I feel like Anthony can learn a lot from Justin. And what stood out to me was that I feel like they have some of the same tendencies. When you hold the ball, bad things happen. I feel like Justin Fields was lights out when he just made decisive decisions. And when he did throw interceptions, it's because he held the ball too long, tried to make a superhero play, and it's like, dude, you don't have to do that, every time. I get it if it's Hail Mary, end of the game, you got to do something. But some of that stuff, I was like, you could probably just throw it in the dirt, throw it away, and save yourself. So that's what I picked up on the most. But I felt like, Justin was dialed in. Anthony had his moments. But that second day, I think that the Bears put more pressure on him and kind of sped him up a little bit. And that kind of showed with the team itself with some of their penalties and miscues. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good joint practice. A lot of scuffles the second day. Ended a little bit early, probably for the best, because at that point, it felt like every 4 plays, there were people cussing each other out and shoving each other and, yo mama and yo mama. So it was a lot of that. But it was a good environment. And like I said, I was very encouraged by seeing at least the growth that I think I've seen in Justin Fields. And I thought that DJ Moore was lights out. I mean, he had his battles against some of the Colts cornerbacks. Kenny Moore got him a few times, but to me, he's a true wide receiver one and somebody that, if he stays healthy, pencil him for 1,000 yards.
Hey, James, the joint practices are a completely different animal, right? You get so many different looks and perspectives, so much so that I think it really led to the decision for Matt Eberflus to sit Justin Fields this week. So I'm curious, being as that is, what differences did you notice from maybe the Colts in their regular practice versus the joint practice? Did anything stand out to you that you maybe were surprised about based on how things unfolded during the regular practices?
No, not really. I think it was pretty intense on both sides, and the Colts ended up resting their starters as well. So yesterday's game, Jim Irsay, you all know, is a very unique owner. So he talked during the third quarter of the game, and that was all of our stories on the beat. It was whatever he says, write that up, and then the game was kind of just all right, get a couple grabs on that and get up out of there. So we didn't focus much on the game because, again, they practiced so hard. But I think what stood out to me from Anthony Richardson was making sure that he learns to check down, to take the underneath stuff, because the Bears would not allow him to use that big play ability. And when he did force it, Eddie Jackson made him pay for it with an easy interception. So I think that those are the things he has to get better at, and he'll get better at it. And I think the Bears gave him a ton of looks that he just wasn't ready for, especially that second day, because they're going to be more, I think, scheme-based and more real as far as their defense in those joint practices because they're not filmed as opposed to a preseason game. So preseason was a lot of vanilla stuff, which is why we didn't see a lot of the top guys. During those joint practices, they got really intense, and you saw what each team is trying to do. And I thought that, again, the Bears kept Anthony Richardson on his toes, which is good for him to gain that experience.
Hi, James. It's great to talk to you. Thank you for coming on the podcast. We're all very happy that you're here. My question for you was, which Bears players have surprised you from the practices? Have there been any performances that you saw as being good? I know that the Bears, the rookie quarterback that they have in camp right now, Tyson Bagent, I think his name is, has been impressing people, but has there been anyone that maybe hasn't lived up to expectations that has come as kind of a surprise in training camp so far?
I think Tyreek Stevenson, not like that he's, a bust or anything like that. I think that he just took a couple steps back maybe in that second practice, and then also yesterday's game had the pick slip through his hands. But I would say I was more looking towards, and maybe it's just the nature of who I am. I don't really look at, guys who aren't performing well. It's like, all right, who's standing out to me? Who's doing good things? And I thought that, is it Roshan? Is that how it's his name?
Yep.
Running back. He looked good. I was like, this guy can play. He had some explosive plays, some tough runs, even in yesterday's game as well. He's someone I think that could help shoulder that load back there with Khalil and take some pressure off Justin Fields. They don't really have – I don't think they have like a true three-down back. Matt Forte's not walking to the door anytime soon, although a prime Matt Forte would be great for this team. I do think that he's someone that surprised me, showed me a little bit something. And like you said, I thought that P.J. Walker actually struggled more than I thought he would. And I do think that, even though, Eberflus wouldn't say so, explicitly, I think that there is sort of a door open now to who will be QB2 in Chicago behind Justin Fields.
All right, James, you talked about running backs a little bit with Roschon Johnson. Going back to the Colts running back with Jonathan Taylor, you mentioned it earlier. It's just the storyline with the Indianapolis Colts. Jim Irsay, I think, talked a little bit about it, and he had some comments that maybe said a lot, but also didn't say a lot. How do you think this situation is going to resolve when it's all said and done?
Yeah, so he said yesterday, we're excited to have Jonathan Taylor back. And I tweeted out that quote along with a few others, and everyone here in Colts land was like, oh my gosh, he's back. It's amazing. But no, he is not back. He'll return to the team tomorrow. They're traveling to Philly for joint practices. He'll travel with them. However, he's not been practicing. So to me, the story is, when does he actually practice? If he practices, and there had been no public indication that he's going to rescind his trade request. So I don't know where they stand, but I do think in the end, he will play for the Colts this season, not because he wants to, but because he pretty much has to. I read through the CBA, spent about a day and a half reading through all the different rules, right, trying to find a way out for JT, and he doesn't have one. I mean, when you have 1 year left on your deal, you really don't have much leverage if they don't want to trade you or get rid of you or pay you even more money. So he's due $4.3 million this year. He probably doesn't want to go out there without more guaranteed money underneath his belt, but he won't get it because the Colts won't offer it to him. And the CBA basically says you have to play at least 6 games to get in what we call an accrued season. He has 3 accrued seasons. He needs a 4th one to become a free agent. If he says he sits out, forfeits a ton of money and gets fined, whatever, his contract would not be done after this year if he sat out. It would just basically be frozen until the following year, and he would still owe the Colts another full year on his rookie deal. So I think he has to play at some point, and maybe he just comes out and shows that he's healthy before the trade deadline and then demands a trade again or makes it louder, ruffles the feathers even more. But he has given no public indication he wants to be back here. But the CBA says it's like the mafia. You're in here until we say you're not.
Hey, just really quick, from one of our listeners, TJ Brooks, he's got the question. He wants to know, is this the year that Pittman breaks out? What do you kind of think about that one?
I think he could be. I think that he's been very productive considering all of the chaos at the number 1 position in football, which is quarterback, obviously, because ever since Andrew Luck retired in 2019, the Colts have not had the same starting quarterback in week 1. This is his 4th different starting week 1 quarterback since he's entered the league. And, 4 seasons, 4 different quarterbacks. And so last year they had 3 different quarterbacks in 1 year, starting quarterbacks. So I think that Pittman has produced, and what will help him a lot this year and what could make it a breakout year is that AR has a cannon, and what Pittman is good at is those jump balls, those contested balls, those balls down the field. He doesn't have great speed like a DJ Moore, but he does have that big body, 6'3" frame where you could throw it up, and he's a tough dude. He usually comes down with it, and that's what they missed last year because they could just not throw the ball downfield no matter if it was Gardner. I'm sorry, not Gardner Minshew, but if it was Matt Ryan, if it was Nick Foles, if it was Sam Ehlinger. None of them could push the ball down the field consistently, and I think AR gives them a chance to do that. So Pittman could be in for a big year, and if he does have a big year, he'll be in for an even bigger payday. I think he's going to get paid either way, but everyone keeps saying here, like, why is JT upset he didn't get a contract extension? Pittman didn't get one either. Well, Pittman's a wide receiver. He's going to get paid either way, and he's also been smarter with what he said this offseason as opposed to JT. At first, it was very Boy Scoutish. Oh, I signed my contract. I'm obligated to do this for them. Yada, yada, yada. Then he went to the complete opposite end of the spectrum where he was like, you see why guys request trades and you see why guys are unhappy, whatever. Pittman's been like very smart in saying that, hey, I'm grateful to be here. And, every year is an audition and I'm just trying out for the Colts again. And, I want to make sure that I'm proving to every team that I can play, which basically means in case you don't want to pay me in Indianapolis, other teams, come get me. I will be playing for you for $20 million a year next year.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
All right. When a guy talks that is on mute, James, just so you know, there's going to be.
Sheldon's also the one who gives us the most crap too. So this is very good. This is very good for me.
I think Dangle, did you mute my mic? You told me my mic is hot, so I think you may have.
No,
I
definitely mute me. No, I definitely didn't.
Okay, well. Anyway, so what I was saying was TJ with a perfect setup for my next question. I did not pay him to lay this for me, but regarding Pittman, there was a lot of scuttlebutt about him potentially being involved in a trade for the number 1 overall pick way back when. I don't know how much of that was fan fiction, but do you have any sense of how interested the Colts were in maybe trading up for the number 1 pick with the Bears?
There was interest there, but never real interest. We never felt like that was going to be a real possibility. We definitely pressed GM Chris Ballard on it, but I think that they were in a position where they felt like they were still going to get a really great player. And the reason why I think they were okay with staying at number 4 and getting Anthony Richardson was because of Shane Steichen. Now, if they hadn't hired him with his track record with Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts and even back in the day, Phillip Rivers, they probably wouldn't have gone that route. But, you got Jim Irsay saying they would have taken Anthony Richardson number 1 if they had number 1 pick. I don't believe that, but I do think that they were okay staying at 4 as long as no one jumped them to 3. And no, I would say Pittman was never a real option, even if they were to trade up. They needed weapons, and they knew that they needed someone to help alleviate the pressure on an eventual rookie quarterback. So I'm excited to see what Anthony Richardson can do. And I definitely was monitoring what the Bears were doing as well, though, because as we know, there was, at least you all could probably speak to it better than me, there was like that time where we were thinking like, would the Bears really pull the trigger on Bryce Young and move on from Justin Fields, or has Fields shown enough to make them give them another go this year? So obviously they chose the latter and got a haul for it. I think the Bears are better off because of it.
It's interesting that the draft to me, it feels like it was kind of a long time ago, even though it wasn't. It was quite recent. But the Bears and Colts have actually been very closely intertwined over these last few months, because it was the Colts that ended up losing to the Texans on the final day of the season, and that was what got the Bears the number 1 pick, and that's what led them to getting DJ Moore and kind of being in this position. But also what you were saying just before I asked my question, this kind of segues perfectly into it. What you were saying about how the Bears, there was a lot of speculation. Could they go after, could they go after another quarterback in the draft? Could they go after Bryce Young? Or has Justin Fields shown enough to, stick with the Bears and kind of be their quarterback of the future? And I remember in the playoffs when Philadelphia was making their run, there was a lot of comparison going on between Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields. And a lot of people said it almost seems like Justin Fields is a bigger version of Jalen Hurts. He's got a stronger arm than Jalen Hurts, but they both are very mobile all over the field, and they really use their legs, and that's kind of a big part of their game. So my question for you is just your thoughts on Justin Fields and the Bears offense, just knowing that it's going to be a big year for Fields and the Bears.
Yeah, I think it's a prove-it year for Fields. I don't think he has, if he doesn't have a fantastic season, just get him out the door. But I do think that he has a lot less excuses this year than he had in previous years. And not even excuses, just valid reasons to why he didn't succeed, maybe to the degree others wanted. So, we talk about offensive line, skill position players. He was working with, nothing last year, evidenced by 3 wins and the number 1 pick. But to me, they upgraded the offensive line. They add a 1,000-yard receiver, DJ Moore, who I think is a true number 1 receiver. They upgrade in other areas as well. So I think that this year is a kind of put up or shut up year for Justin Fields. And the key to me, again, is to be decisive in his decisions and not, hold on to the ball forever, not try to make the home run play every time. And also, prove, in my opinion, a lot of people who call him a running back, just prove those people wrong. Because to me, he ran a lot last year because that's kind of what they had to do to have any semblance of success. And this year, I think that he, still will have that dynamic in his game, but you're going to see a lot more of what we saw at Ohio State, where it was, I'll run if I need to, but I'll pick you apart through the air like I usually want to. So I think Justin has gotten a bad rap as far as that has gone throughout the league because, again, he hasn't been working with the best skill position players, the best offensive line, the best situation. And as we all know, people have opinions on these guys, but it's a lot easier said than done. I think this year he has legitimate help around him.
James, can you foresee there being any Colts-Bears swaps once cuts are made? Any guys that are on the bubbles on the bubble that might enhance one another's team?
That's actually a good one. I mean, Mike Strawn maybe is a wide receiver. He's been really good throughout the preseason. Big body, jump up and catch the ball, that type of guy. But it's never really translated to the regular season. And I'm just wondering, okay, would they, roll with him? He did also just pull his groin, so he's kind of like borderline. Do we keep this guy? Do we not? He could be someone, I don't know. He looks so good in the preseason, and you're like, how come it never translates? So you just wonder if that's someone the Bears could be interested in scooping up or something like that. There's also a lot of tight ends in that room. You just wonder if there's a tight end that might slip through the cracks. I don't think that there are any top guys off the top of my head that the Bears might consider, but I think for the most part, the Bears probably aren't looking too much at the Colts' roster because it isn't all that great to me. It's one where they're sort of in the Bears' position, at least I think so, where they want to see progress from their young quarterback, and then they're probably not kicking themselves or upset if they do get a top 5 pick. Everyone here wants Marvin Harrison Jr., so they would not mind a 3-win season and just seeing Anthony Richardson develop.
James, we got one more fun one for you, but I have been dying to ask this to you ever since I heard that you were coming on. I mean, you covered one of the most bizarre seasons in NFL history last year with just the bringing in of Jeff Saturday and the Jim Irsay stuff. I mean, I know you grew up here and you were a Bears fan previously. I wonder if it reminded you of like the Mark Trestman era, but I just want to know from your perspective, what was last year like? Because from the outside, it just seemed like, a shit show.
Yeah, it was crazy. Last year was my first year covering the NFL full time and my first season covering the Colts. So it wasn't like I was coming into this having been some, veteran reporter who knows everything or has been around for a long time. We got a guy here, Mike Chapp, who's covered the Colts since they moved here in 1984. So this is his 40th season. He's been here for all 40 seasons. So he's seen it all, done it all. Whereas he even turned to me at one point last season. It was like, James, we're all going through this for the first time. Like, I have never seen this in my, 4 decades on the beat. So it's been crazy. It was crazy. I remember the date, November 7th, 2022. They hired Jeff Saturday, and it was a Monday because it was like we got off a flight from, I forget where we were coming from. Might have been New England. And I remember texting my bosses and my editors because I was still relatively new to the NFL. And I was like, is this normal? Like, the guys having the experience. What are we doing? I was so confused. And that night, I mean, the press conference was like, just a big joke to everyone in the NFL. I got a lot of texts with laughing emojis because Jim Irsay and just that entire scene was bizarre. It was, talking about sausage and aliens, and you compare Chris Ballard to Michael Jordan. I believe my first or second question ever to Jim Irsay was, I think I asked him, I said, hey, you have other head coaches or other coaches on your staff you have other head coaches on your staff, at least previous head coaches. So why is Jeff Saturday a better fit for the team, or the best fit for the team, as opposed to those guys who've been head coaches before, or at least have coached in the NFL before? And he turns to me and he says, well, you just said it, because he's the best fit. I'm like, I didn't say that. I was like, I'm asking you guys. So it was unbelievable. But I mean, I guess from a viewership standpoint, it was never a dull moment, but definitely was very much just thrown in the fire. Everything you could ever imagine happening in one season pretty much happened. I mean, they changed quarterbacks 3 times. They fired, the offensive coordinator. They fired the coach. They brought in, a coach who had no experience. They blew the biggest lead in NFL history, Minnesota, which was insane. My story was done at like halftime. I was thinking to myself, like, I am done. This is easy. We're gonna get out of here early tonight, and that did not happen. I could not. And then Minnesota has an open air press box, so even though you're indoor, like, you can hear the crowd. You're basically in there with them. There's no glass separating you, and it was the loudest place I've ever been in my life when they made that comeback. And it was unbelievable. And my first game, actually, last year was a tie at Houston. First NFL game I ever covered was a tie. So I'm walking around the locker room asking guys how does it feel to not win but not lose. So that was crazy.
All teams, too. Houston, man.
Exactly. So it was, everything you could think of pretty much happened. And then we get to the point now where I haven't even had like a normal offseason because they hired a coach, right? They draft a quarterback, which is obviously big news. And then the JT stuff happens, and it's like, oh, you thought you were going to have a normal offseason. No, you're not. And not to mention the gambling. Isaiah Rodgers, senior.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
Dude, oh, my God.
So, yeah, man, it's been like one thing after another. I mean, I had to call the Indiana Gaming Commission or something and talk to their spokesperson. I remember thinking to myself, like, I've never done this in my life. And it was all of those things that I think maybe a better writer definitely keeps you on your toes. But I'm excited at least to just talk about or write about the actual games again, because it got pretty crazy during the off season. But yeah, man, last year was nuts. There was a lot of nights where I didn't sleep a lot. And honestly, I was just trying to stay afloat. First year on the beat, first year learning the NFL, and you're not dealing with normal things. I mean, even the best player, Shaq Leonard, star linebacker, he's out with a back surgery. You're trying to figure out what's happening with him. JT messed up his ankle. He's out. So you didn't see anything go right anywhere. It was very weird. But I kind of look at it like, if all that happened, I mean, what else can you go through at this point? I should knock on some wood, though, because knowing this team, they'll mess me up. So we'll see. But it was crazy. I'll never forget. November 7th, we're in the press room, and I remember thinking to myself, wow, we're grilling Jeff Saturday about not having any NFL coaching experience, and his family's there. And I was like, wow, beautiful family, but we got to grill your dad or your husband right in front of you, because we all know this is ridiculous. And, they win their first game, I believe, against Vegas.
Yeah.
In his debut in Vegas. That lets you know how horrible they were last year. And Jim Irsay has like this bus video or plane video after the game telling everybody to eat their crow. And then they don't win again the rest of the year. They blew the biggest thing in NFL history at Minnesota. And it was just, oh my gosh, it was unbelievable. I remember New York after the Giants game where they got smacked by Daniel Jones and them. And I come out, me and my buddy, my co-writer, we come out to our rental car. There's a flat. So we're changing a flat at like midnight in New York or New Jersey. Rather.
What?
Yes. And I remember thinking to myself, this is like a sign of what this season has been. So,
it's like a sitcom.
Seriously.
Crazy.
All right.
This sounds like the New York Mets, but in one football season.
Yeah, really.
This sounds like
It was crazy.
It sounds
I
like
everything too. Honestly, it was nuts.
So 2 things. One, if you ever decide to write a book about my first year covering the NFL, I am buying it and you are autographing it. And 2, I just want to say I remember vividly that press conference. I was 35 minutes, like however long, late to the gym in the parking lot, watching it, even not as like a Colts fan, but somebody who just could not believe the train wreck that was happening in front of our eyes. So I commend you for going through all that and just, coming out unscathed as best you could be. But those stories are incredible, man.
Oh man, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I even had one where we went to Jacksonville week 2, first game by myself because my coworker or co-writer had like a wedding to go to. So I go to Jacksonville, I go straight from the airport to like some Buffalo Wild Wings, right? Hang out with some of the buddies. Get to the hotel. they don't have my room. They're like, oh, sorry, we had a glitch in the system, so we overbooked the hotel. So the room you have and paid for, someone else is in it right now. So they have to like take me from like this Marriott I was in, I think, to like a Hyatt, like 3 blocks away. They put me in there, and then like after all that, make it to the game, get back fine. They charged me for both rooms. And so I had to like go like, call the customer service line and get all this, do all this yelling and screaming. And honestly, it didn't even work on the customer service line because it took forever to get through. So I went to Twitter back when I had my blue check.
Yes.
I just went off, which I never do. I was like, you know what? I need my money back because they're charging me for a room that they didn't even have for me. So it was this whole thing. And yeah, I had some crazy stuff happen last year. But honestly, I was thinking to myself, it cannot get any worse. So there has to be Anthony Richardson. You have to do something this year to make my life easier. And he has. He's been a lot of fun. And again, I think for me, the best part about it is, jokes aside, is that you're complaining about going to the NFL game and dealing with NFL nonsense as opposed to like real life stuff. So as crazy as it was, it's like I'm not writing about, commander stuff where you're dealing with an owner or criminal, investigations and stuff like that. It's just, got an owner here who likes to be different. That's all.
All right, our final question. It's one that we love to ask our different guests. Do you have any, and Dangle, feel free to jump in here because you may have a different way to word this. We need to know your Oreo preferences and your Reese's preferences. What are your go-tos when it comes to those candies?
I'm a plain dude. Regular Oreos, regular Reese's. That's how it goes.
Okay.
Don't like double stuff. I'm not a huge sweets guy, so I like double stuff. I don't need anything to be extra. I don't need the Reese's with pretzels or something. No, it's just regular for me. That usually works good for me.
We have a long-standing feud about golden Oreos versus regular Oreos, and gets contentious. So it's good to know you're
traditional.
Attaboy. You're a wise man.
We'll talk about that later. We want to say thank you, James Boyd from The Athletic, so very much. We know your time is precious, so we want to let you get out of here. For any reason, if some of our listeners, some of the people chiming in on YouTube are not following you, how can they get after you? How can they follow you?
The name is James Boyd. The Twitter is Romeoville Kid. Same thing on Instagram, TikTok. Actually, I've done a couple TikToks, at least last season, where I did a couple of clips of like what my day looks like as a reporter. People can check that out. I'm going to try to do more voiceovers this year to explain what I'm actually doing, but I think it's always cool to get that perspective on how it is from a reporter's point of view, rather than like, I don't go to the game and just sit there and eat popcorn and just relax. And, no, it's like a lot of different things you got to do. It's fun, but it is work. So that's always a good behind the scenes look at everything. But yeah, check out all my work at The Athletic as well. Got a lot of things coming. Obviously, Anthony Richardson is the number one topic. JT is number 2. I'm going to write about those 2 guys till my hands fall off this season. But, we'll see if there's any other chaos that happens. But for the most part, I think it'll be all football. We'll see.
Well, James, thank you again so much for stopping by the Bear Down Chicago podcast. We appreciate you very much. Have a great night.
All right. Anytime, guys. You have a good one.
All right. You too, James. Thank you.
Thanks, James.
So a slew of amazing guests continues. I wish he wrote for the Bears because he was highly entertaining. And I think Patrick Sheldon probably liked him a whole lot more than Dan Wiederer. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, can we do a 1-for-1 swap? I would be down for that trade right now.
Before we get into Bears content, boys, we got some people that we have to thank for the show, and I'm excited because I've got a T-shirt that coincides with this, boys.
You do, and we'll get there. But first, we need to give our shout out and our props to our guy, our friend Jeff Cadwallader. He has been working hard since the beginning of the year to expand his real estate services to now include commercial properties, and he's been killing it. Doesn't matter if you're a business owner, a homeowner, or an investor. Maybe you're, a certain undrafted rookie free agent quarterback who hasn't lived away from home much, but might need a home near the Chicago area because you also are killing it. Looking at you, Tyson Bagent. But if you're looking to buy, sell, or lease commercial or residential properties, Jeff is your guy. So call or text Jeff Cadwallader with SVN Landmark today at 630-254-4734 or visit genevajeff.com.
If you're watching the stream, you see Ryan's sweet new T-shirt from one of our sponsors.
Hey,
Sheridan
that's a
Bar.
logo.
It is.
Sweet.
It is indeed.
That's really, really sweet. And you just got your fresh cut. Looks nice, Ryan.
I
Happy
most
haircut
certainly
there.
did. Will hooked me up as he always does.
Exciting things coming on the horizon for Sheridan's. We'll share soon.
Can't wait. Can't wait to share.
Okay, Sheridan's Barbershop, located in historic downtown Wheaton, Illinois, has been serving the community for 69 years with 6 barbers, open 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. They have appointments available to book online or by phone at your convenience. You can go to sheridansbarbershop.com or you can call 630-668-0137 and book yours today. Sheridan's Barbershop, where traditional meets modern.
All right, boys, let's talk about the Chicago Bears. They played a football game on Saturday night. I had a friend that I haven't seen in 3 years just text me at about 4:30, say, hey, can I swing by? So he did. I didn't get to watch the game last night, but I have subsequently watched the whole thing. Bagent Mania is a thing that is happening in Chicagoland. We will definitely talk about it. So, boys, let's just do this. Let's do a quick round table for overall thoughts on the game, just anything that stood out to you, anything that you want to talk about. For this, let's go Brendan, Jack, Patrick Sheldon, and Thomas.
This game was boring. I mean, for even by preseason standards, that was tough to watch. I said it was the most boring game since before the pandemic. So we didn't have preseason 2020. I thought every single preseason game since then was better. But look, that's what happens when the starters don't play. The biggest news, of course, Tyson Bagent just coming in and sparking the offense after PJ Walker crapped all over the floor. We talked a little bit last week. I'm sure this is going to come up about him being a viable backup quarterback, and I definitely am questioning it now because he didn't look good in pretty much any snap. From the first snap, when he tripped over his running back, to the last one he took where he refused to throw the ball downfield to Deontay Foreman, not once, but twice when he was actually open. So I was really impressed with what I saw from Tyson Bagent. Just look calm, cool, collected, poised, accurate. Any word you want to use to describe him, I think works. He was phenomenal. Not so great from the defense, particularly with the penalties. For an Eberflus team, I was very discouraged to see that there were 8 penalties coming off of 7 from last week. Saw a few flashes from Javon Dexter and Zach Pickens, especially the first 2 possessions. So I thought that was pretty good. I think we talked a little bit about it. Tyreek Stevenson not doing as well as he did last week, but this game just overall was kind of a slog. Unless you were watching like just those couple possessions from Tyson Bagent and then maybe one Nathan Peterman score from to Doris Fountain, who also had a good game. There really wasn't too much to take away. There was, I think I counted 1 or 2 Bears starters that actually played, and that's Stevenson and Jack Sanborn. Everybody else was out. So, yeah, it's just boring, especially even for a preseason game.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this week on the Tyson Bagent show. I think that's what we're going to have to do this particular week. But no, perfect segue per usual, Brendan. As we know, Sanborn has a streak of sandlot in him, has a nose for the ball. He's always around the ball. He's really physical. Roshan runs hard, runs fast. He hits the line of scrimmage with a great deal of speed. The Bears are building up some depth on the offensive line. I know some people are still freaking out about the offensive line, and I understand, but Kramer had a real nice game at center, and we're continuing to see development from my guy, Chris Morgan, in the offensive line. Pettis can catch every punt, but he has no elusiveness and no playmaking ability. So I don't know what you do there. That's kind of frustrating. And Walker was about as unimpressive as most folks have said across all of the social mediums.
So you guys know I'm a Yankees fan. Phil Rizzuto used to be the broadcaster with Rick Cerrone, and there's a story about how Cerrone went to the bathroom during an inning, and he came back and he was trying to get caught up on the book. And first one was like a fly out to the left field, and then the next 2 outs were WWWW. And Cerrone asked Rizzuto, he's like, "What? I've never seen that in this official scorecard. What is WW?" And Rizzuto says, "Oh, wasn't watching." So if I'm at home scoring, I'm giving it the Rizzuto WW. I did not see the game. Long-winded way of saying I didn't watch the game. I thought Brendan and Jack did a great summation, so you probably don't need to hear from me anyway. So I will turn it over to Thomas.
Yeah, I honestly don't have much to say about this game because, as I think, I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one of you said it, but it was a very boring game. There really wasn't a lot of action here. I mean, I thought. I'm sorry, I keep butchering his name.
Bajent.
Agent, like secret agent.
Bajent. Okay, yeah, I thought he did really well. I've seen some people on Twitter say that, he's kind of their training camp sweetheart, and he's the guy that like everyone seems to be falling in love with. He's the big story. Other than that, there wasn't really a whole lot to like grab onto or dissect. There wasn't really much anything exciting here. I mean, Nathan Peterman was solid, but I thought the offensive line was fine. You saw I'm gonna butcher this name again. Jatire Carter. He carried over, from last week. He had 3 positively graded run blocks out of 9 total hits, so that was very good. But all in all, I thought it was just a regular preseason game. I don't have a whole lot to add here, but yeah, that's kind of my brief summation.
Yeah, that's totally fine. And I think, Thomas, you actually set this up pretty darn well. Talking about, I mean, is this my Rodney Adams now of the season, Brendan? I mean, this is as Thomas said, it's the training camp sweetheart. It's the guy that everybody is kind of looking at, that everyone has kind of fallen in love with. And so the question, boys, is Bajent now a legitimate number 2? Because if we look at the numbers, PJ Walker, man, it is not at all what is advertised. So for all of our audio only listeners, I'm going to read these off to you. PJ Walker has been 5 for 12 for 25 yards and an interception. Brendan, one of the pieces that you wrote today that was so well done. I got to read your piece before I watched the game, and I knew exactly the play that you were talking about as soon as it happened. He had a chance. He had a chance to hit a running back twice on the same play where dude was wide open and could have made something out of nothing, but instead he takes a sack. It was terrible. Then we have Nathan Peterman, who I actually think has played like a veteran. And to be honest, Nathan Peterman had a couple seasons where he was just absolutely atrocious. So he's been 14 for 24, 173 yards and a touchdown, which last week, boys, you all were saying that Peterman had the throw of the game, where I was arguing to say that Tyson Bajent had it. Now, Tyson Bajent has been 13 for 15 for 113 yards, no touchdowns throwing the ball, but that very, very impressive rushing touchdown on 3rd down, which was it was really, really well done. So, boys, this is the question that I'm really thinking about: are you going to go in with PJ Walker as your backup quarterback? Are you going to keep Tyson Bajent on this 53? Where do you go from here? What are you going to do?
I think that's really tough because I don't think right now Tyson Bajent should not be a backup quarterback yet. He still needs to, I keep saying he still needs to develop. I know he's played a ton of college football. Like, go back and look at the amount of games played at Shepherd University Division II, the amount of passes attempted. I mean, Lester Wiltfong Jr. posted that. I think this is right. I can't get the exact amount. I'm not looking at it right now, but it was like 1,100 passing attempts in his last 2 seasons. For context, Mitchell Trubisky attempted about 500 passes his entire collegiate career. So this guy's played a lot of football. He's thrown a lot of passes. He's played the quarterback position since he was 6. So you know that he's kind of like he knows he can make plays. He knows what he needs to run. I thought his press conference after the game was exceptional, where he's basically talking about, I want to make sure that the coaches they're comfortable with me. Like, I make them comfortable being able to run every single play in this offense. I know it's not going to be perfect, but I know I can run it effectively, and I know I can make the plays when needed to. I would still put another veteran at the backup quarterback position as of right now. I don't think it can be PJ Walker, though. I know last week we were saying, well, let's give it a little time, but since then, he struggled in joint practices. He was throwing a ton of interceptions. I think Shells was the one who even posted, like, guys, I'm getting angry now. And I swear to God, I thought it was about Nate Davis, so I almost didn't even open the tweet. And then I saw it was about PJ Walker. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then, he followed it up with just 104 for 6 yards. yesterday. Now, granted, he didn't get too much help from his receivers. Equanimeous St. Brown had a drop. But if I'm the Bears, and I don't like saying this, but I would put Nathan Peterman as QB2 and Tyson Bagent as QB3, keeping them all on the roster. I'm eating the $2 million guaranteed salary for PJ Walker, letting him go. You know what? Maybe you shouldn't have gotten rid of Trevor Siemian. I kind of thought that was a questionable move because I thought Siemian was like the quintessential backup quarterback. But that's what I'm doing right now. And then letting Bagent continue to work his way up, but still having a veteran that knows the offense because Peterman was in it last year.
Just really quick, boys, before all the rest of you cut in, 3 quarterbacks on a roster. That last spot, man, on a 53. I mean, that's a tough ask to have 3 instead of 2.
Well, so there is, and I might be getting the rule wrong, but there is the emergency quarterback rule now. And I think it's for the regular season, not just the playoffs, but where essentially you can have a third quarterback on your active roster, but he can't be activated or he can't play unless the first 2 quarterbacks go out with injury.
Gotcha.
Is that right?
Yeah,
it sounds right.
Yep.
Okay.
So Tyson Bagent was able to spend his entire childhood saying to every kid that he met, my dad would kick your dad's ass. And he was right because his dad was a world champion arm wrestler from both sides, left and right arm. He was like, his dad was a hype man for Tyson ever since like he was little. When he was like 10 years old, he'd go to church and tell the pastor, my son's going to be in the NFL someday. So I want to try to build the lore as much as possible because it's just fun. On a serious note, however, I think what
you had me for a second. I was like, Jack did his research for this episode.
No, that was all true.
That's all true.
All true.
Okay, but wait. Okay, sorry.
Did you think I was just?
Yes, and I thought that was the best makeup that you've like made up story I've ever heard in my entire life. I was hook, line, and sinker, but then that's true.
No, I didn't know about the 2 arms. I thought it was just 1, but
I'm sure I know he was from the left side. I think he was from the right too.
You're probably right.
Shells. We don't need to hear from you right now. By the way, so I think
so many opportunities.
I know, right?
Can we Bears? Let's
wide
go.
Open. I think I'm going to play I'm going to try to be the ship and not the ocean. We signed Walker for 2 years. It's the preseason. I know this debate goes back and forth. Here's one instance where I think NFL experience wins out. And Walker has NFL experience. He specifically brought him in to back up Justin Fields. Now, that's what my mind is telling me. Like when I watch, Bagent, my heart and my gut says, that guy is incredibly poised in the pocket, throws an incredibly accurate ball, seemed to be unfazed by the speed of the game and, NFL level caliber defensive lineman flying, at the pocket. He was very good. Not just, I think, Ryan, we were texting back and forth and you're like, is he good or is he preseason good? I was like, no, he's good. He's looks really good.
Yeah. I want to challenge that a little bit. Like I agree with you from his intangible standpoint, how he looks, the things that he does. I agree, but he's still doing it against pretty vanilla defenses, against second and third string. We know there's a big difference when teams are scheming against him specifically. What will he look like? So the unknown to me, and I think you guys agree, is a reason why I'm not comfortable making him the number 2 quarterback. We saw what happens even with a guy as talented as Justin Fields when he didn't get the amount of reps and the amount of practice with the ones going into training camp, and then Dalton gets hurt and he's rushed in and he looks awful, right? We've got a young quarterback that can be developed as a backup, something that I think we've all wanted for many, many years, for them to either draft somebody in the later rounds, sign somebody, and develop that guy to be a legitimate backup, or maybe, fleece some other team, ton of draft picks based on a 1-game performance a la Matt Flynn or somebody of that ilk. But I think they'd be doing him a disservice by making him the 2 right off the bat and maybe stunting his development, maybe pushing him into a situation where he's not 100% ready yet. So we know there are going to be some cuts out there. Maybe they can pick up a guy off the street to come in, another veteran to be the number 2. But I definitely want to keep Bagent on the roster in some form or fashion and continue to develop him because I think he's got the potential to be pretty decent.
So just kind of like how Jack said, it's kind of, my brain says one thing, but my heart says the other. Tyson Bagent has obviously been awesome this preseason, at least in my opinion. And if it was up to me, and if we were in a perfect world, I'd say he's our number 2. We're going to have him and Fields. It's going to be great. These guys both look good, and that's just the way it's going to be. But you have to take into account that Fields, while he is Chicago's guy right now, that doesn't mean he'll be their guy in the future. And there's still a lot of questions surrounding him that he has to answer this year. And there's still a lot of progress that he has to, he has to improve in a lot of areas of his game. And so I think that if you have a backup quarterback that is a rookie and is also, getting, his first taste of the NFL, that's not a very good match to have 2 guys that are kind of making progress. You want to have maybe your starter in Fields that, you're working with on the side, trying to improve his game. But then if he gets hurt or if he can't start, something happens, then the next guy up is a guy, just a veteran guy. So I think PJ Walker would be a very good backup too, like very good in terms of like just a solid option, a more secure option than Bagent. But it's really hard to have 3 quarterbacks on the roster. But in a perfect world, I'd like to have Bagent there in some capacity. But I think PJ Walker would be the number 2 right now.
Boys, let's talk punt returner / kick returner / wide receiver. This is going to be a really interesting make. Who do you guys think are your locks in which to make this team? I started asking the question. I haven't made up my mind about this, but asking the question, do I take Darius Fountain over Equanimeous St. Brown? I know Equanimeous St. Brown is a phenomenal blocker. And that Fountain is a much better pass catcher. But I mean, he seems to be in the right place at the right time, making great plays. And also, Jack, you kind of alluded to this earlier, is that Dante Pettis can in fact catch punts, unlike Velus Jones. But he has 0 wow factor to him in any way, shape, or form. So how are you guys kind of feeling about this wide receiver position? Let's head back the same way that we just went.
Well, Dangle, I know that you definitely read my article because I made that same point about Equanimeous St. Brown and Darius Fountain. So well done. I don't think it happens though. It would be fun just knowing what Darius Fountain has done. I mean, he led all receivers yesterday with 5 catches, 85 yards, of course, that awesome touchdown. But I think, so you talk about the locks. Let's go with the wide receiver position. DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, easily the 3 locks. Tyler Scott, also likely there. Then you'll probably get Equanimeous St. Brown. And then let's say, there's the 6th wide receiver. Is it Dante Pettis? Is it Velus Jones? Is it Darius Fountain? It's probably going to be Pettis or Jones. Look, Pettis doesn't, Jack, you said it. He's not exciting. Yes, he catches the ball, but he's got very little elusiveness. I mean, yes, last year kind of seemed like an outlier with his punt return yards. I think he was at 9 yards a return for punting. But I would much rather see Tyler Scott do that. And I think Velus Jones would be much more effective as a kick returner and then to use as that 5th wide receiver and it as the gadget player. I think last week when we were talking about is Velus Jones going to have a role on this team? I think I said no. I don't think he should. He did have a better practice against the Colts before he got hurt. But the good news about this is he's not in a position where he's necessarily a necessity for the Bears next year. He's more of a luxury because they don't need him to be the number 2 or even number 3 wide receiver. And he's certainly not going to be the number 4 pass catching option with Cole Kmet and Robert Tonyan there. So you kind of intersperse him, give him like maybe 10 snaps a game and then rely on him for kick returner. It's not the best use of a 3rd round pick from a year ago, but it's still a use that you can get use out of. So I think that's still probably the way they go, at least for this year. I don't feel great about it either way. But right now, like whether it's Tyler Scott, whether it's Dante Pettis, whether it's Velus Jones Jr., there's not going to be like a Devin Hester type back there. Punt return is not going to be great this year, in my opinion.
It is really a tough one because a part of me thinks, well, at least Pettis does catch the ball. He makes good decisions. When he fair catches, it's the appropriate time to fair catch. When he chooses not to field it, it's the appropriate time not to field it. And we all know that doing the opposite of that can have a devastating impact on your team, wherever it is that your field position is for your offense. It was weird. Velus Jones had a great day in practice. I mentioned it to Dangle, and he didn't say anything. He just ignored me. Like, quite literally, I was like, hey, Velus Jones had a great day in practice. And Ryan was just mute because he hates him. So I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the fact that my house is in complete and utter disarray during a renovation. And I had to do some of the demo myself because the company that I hired is incompetent. No. Yeah, nothing to do
Every
with that.
tile you were like, Velus Jones.
Drop this, man.
I hate you all. But
I'm
equally.
being hyperbolic. I'm exaggerating. I think they want Velus to be a kick returner. I think they're not ready to give up on him yet and his high play side ability. So I do think he will make it. I think that St. Brown is a commodity in this offense because he blocks like a beast, and I think that the Bears value that greatly. Along with what's hopefully going to be this refurbished passing game, is going to be an intense run game that I think still sets up the pass. So I think ESB likely makes it. They could coach somebody up to be a punt returner. I think if you've got a halfway decent special teams coach on your staff, then you can take one of these freak athletes and at least coach them to play the position.
Isn't that what they've been trying to do with Velus, though?
Yeah.
But then sometimes it doesn't work out. I think I've told you guys I was a kick returner in college. My coach would say, hey, go out early and take some punts. By my senior year, I was like, Coach, I can do that if you'd like me to, but I can't catch punts. I can catch kickoff returns all day long if you'd like me to. And they tried to teach me to do punt return. And it's an extraordinarily difficult ball to catch coming out of the air. It turns over, it knuckles, the wind impacts it greatly. I'm not trying to make excuses for Velus Jones or any player who can't do it, myself included. It's just really difficult. So, but I do think, I guess maybe I'm double talking, but obviously Velus is not very good at it. But I'm saying, like, I'm not saying Eddie Jackson should do it, but they can put guys back there that would be talented on the roster that could still do it.
Jack, I have a quick question before we get to Sheldon. You said the Bears want him to be a kick returner, though. Do they? Because they didn't line him up there last Saturday. They didn't even attempt him. They just did punt return. I mean, do you think they are having second thoughts there?
They had Scott back, didn't they? I think maybe, I don't know if maybe that's we're not putting our starter in that position. But I mean, I had the numbers up just a little while ago, but I don't have them anymore. His kick return average was excellent last year.
It was good.
And I think he had a knack for it. He didn't hesitate. He didn't take too many cuts. He would take the ball, one cut and go type of kick returner. So I don't know. I guess it is not my bias either. I just don't think the staff's ready to give up on Velus Jones Jr.
Yeah, Brendan, are you talking about during the game? Because a lot of people have been saying, I posed a question about whether Velus will make the team, and a lot of people said, oh, well, they rested him during the game. But I know Bill Zimmerman tweeted out earlier today that he's actually banged up. So he may not have played due to injury.
I meant last weekend against the Titans. I knew he got banged up after Wednesday's practice.
I got you. Okay. So, I have been a pretty big Velus defender. Ryan and I had some battles last year. I've fully supported the guy. I've wanted him to do good. He's a great kid, but I'm sort of at the position where I'm ready to move on. Pettis as a receiver isn't great. We know that, but I've seen Velus drop too many balls as a receiver. So you go to what else do they do in common? We've talked about their punt catching ability. Give me the secure option that's not going to potentially cost them a game or completely turn the tide of a game at a critical moment that Velus did at one point, like twice in a game. He's not reliable back there. If he can't catch punts, if he's not a very good receiver, we're talking about developing this guy. He's developed. He's already like fully baked. He's 37 years old. At this point, like I don't get the argument of keeping him out. He gets older every episode, I think.
But he has one season. He's only played a season, right?
So he's 64. He's 64
now.
Wow.
Yes, he ages exponentially every year. But in all seriousness, like the guy, whoever that last receiver is, this isn't like last year's situation where we're probably going to be, last year we were sort of expecting something out of that spot because the receivers were just terrible. And you were like, gosh, maybe we can get something out of our 6 wide receiver. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. In fact, I think whoever is in that spot is on shaky ground once roster cuts come, because they could be looking to upgrade that position with somebody that gets cut. So, for me, I would take the sure thing in the punt game because I don't see Velus being really all that great in the passing game. He's not going to be a huge contributor. I don't know. Maybe this is a hot take, but I'm not so sure he would get claimed off of waivers if they cut him. I think he probably ends back up in the practice squad, personally. So, I'm taking the sure thing in Pettis as a punt returner, and then I'm going to look to see if I can upgrade after, a couple rounds of roster cuts, see what I can do.
Thomas, what about you?
Well, I mean, I've heard what the 4 of you have said, and I'm just thinking, I've just been thinking this whole time that they've made some good points, but Pettis obviously does everything. He at least catches the ball, he makes good decisions, and that is better than Velus Jones, who has dropped the ball on a number of occasions. And I can't help but feel that if you're the Bears and you're going into this season and, you might have a chance to sneak into the playoffs if things break right and you still have a lot of pieces that are up in the air, the last thing that you want is to have a kick returner back there that can't reliably catch the ball and can't reliably return the ball, because I can just see it now. Game 1 of the regular season and Green Bay's in town and it's tied late and Velus Jones Jr. drops the ball, and that's how Green Bay wins the game. And we can't have that this season. So I would go with Pettis just because he seems like the more reliable option. In terms of the receivers, the big 3, Moore, Mooney, and Claypool, those guys are obviously the locks. And I'm really hoping for a strong bounce back year from Chase Claypool too, because I think that if he gets back to kind of how he was in Pittsburgh, I think he could really open up the offense a little bit more. And also, I'm just sick of hearing about the Bears traded the 32nd pick. I'm sick of hearing about that because, now they have 2 first-round picks, so it doesn't really matter to me all that much. But Equanimeous St. Brown, I think, all I remember about him last year, unfortunately, was the end of the Green Bay game where Fields threw that interception at the end at Soldier Field, and I think it was that he ran his route and pivoted. I'm not sure what it was, but I know that he definitely had a hand in that interception. But I think that they could get him in some situations there, and he could just kind of be almost like a utility player coming in there, because I think that he's good at blocking and he has some good parts of his game that they could use. But I think getting him out of that consistent role that he was in last year, I don't think you want to see him playing in the last few minutes of a game against Green Bay or Detroit or Minnesota. So, yeah, I think he's a solid player.
Can we all collectively?
Oh, gosh, Chelsea.
Oh, I was just gonna say, can we all collectively knock on wood so that Velus doesn't drop a critical punt against Green Bay in Week 1?
Yeah.
He's setting him up to be Cody Parkey 2.0. You know what I mean?
We don't say that name here anymore. Come on.
Just,
I was just gonna say, Thomas, I'm so glad that your memory of Equanimeous St. Brown wasn't the one where he just dropped the ball against the Dolphins. That was the worst one.
That was the worst one. But when you lose to Green Bay, it's it sticks out in your mind. I remember losses to Green Bay going back to before Trubisky. So.
All right, so boys, let's do this. I have one more question I'm going to ask you before we get to things that we missed. Terrell Lewis looked pretty darn good, getting that really nice. Was it just the fumble, or did you get the sack with it as well, the forced fumble? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Well, strip sack.
Strip sack. He looked great. And Travis Gibson maybe came back to earth just a little bit in this game. And that defensive end position, what are you guys kind of thinking about? Let's do this. Let's shake things up completely on this one. Let's go Patrick Sheldon. We'll go Thomas, Jack, and Brendan.
Yeah, wasn't watching. Didn't watch.
But is there any? But here's the thing, Sheldon. I don't think you necessarily needed to watch the game in order to think about at defensive end on this defensive line. Who are the guys you're excited about? Who are the guys you're saying thank you so much? Your services are no longer needed here.
Yeah, I don't know that I can fairly answer that way. I don't know. I don't know how they did in the game. I mean, I'm going based off of what we saw 2 weeks ago, and so my answers would be pretty consistent with what we saw last week. I mean, you said Gibson came back down to earth. He would have been a guy that I'm really excited about, but to hear that he maybe came back to earth against second stringers, like that's not encouraging. So yeah, I mean, let's see what happens next week. I'm really interested. I know this wasn't the question, but I'm really interested to see what Eberflus does with his starters next week. If they're going to have a really long hiatus before they play meaningful football. So if let's see what happens next week. If they maybe play some starters and maybe the other team play some starters and we can see ones versus ones for a minute and see what some of these guys can do. But, we'll see. But Gibson was a guy that I was excited about. I'm disappointed to hear he didn't look all that great yesterday.
Thomas?
So my knowledge of the defensive line is kind of limited, but I will say Terrell Lewis and Blake Freeland are two guys that I thought did really well in this past game. I think that I'd have to obviously watch a few more games of theirs to really tell you who I'm excited about and who I want to leave. But I was just very impressed by their game today. I don't have a whole lot to add here, but
no worries.
I thought that those two guys really impressed me in the game on Saturday.
Jack?
The one thing that is cool about preseason, I think, is really specifically some of the position group competitions. And it was clear that there was one at defensive end last night. And just to watch kind of guys go, back and forth, to clearly see them scrapping for a job is kind of cool. I think I'm going to go with our guy, Jacob Infante, because he's really smart. And I just agree with his list. He's got Yannick, DeMarcus Walker, Travis Gibson, Terrell Lewis, and Dominique Robinson. I'd be interested to see Brendan and Ryan, since you're left, if you think there's any other possibilities in the way that will shake out. But I will say it looks a lot better than it did last year.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my list as well, because the big name that's missing there is Rasheem Green, who signed over from the Texans and who also played with the Seahawks. He was listed as a starter last week, and I believe he started yesterday. Didn't show up in the stat sheet. I just don't see the buzz with him. I think he's kind of had a couple practices early on that were okay, but just seeing Terrell Lewis, Flash Moore, and Travis Gibson, of course, I would definitely pick those guys over Rasheem Green. It's not like they paid him big money. It was just like a few $1 million. So, what's a few million, right? If you're an NFL team. But still, I don't think that he offers a whole ton that Terrell Lewis and Travis Gibson don't. So I would definitely – that list that you just read off, Jack, from our guy Jacob, I would take that list and say, yeah, that's what I do as well.
All right, so boys, let's hit anything that we missed with the Bears going forward, anything that we are especially looking forward to, maybe in that third preseason game or maybe week 1 against the Packers. Anything about this game that stood out to you, legitimately, anything at all that you want to chat about. Let's go that. Yeah, Thomas?
I just had a question that I just wanted to pose to all of you. I just wanted to know your thoughts on the offensive line so far, because that was such a big thing last year. And, that was a huge reason why everyone felt like Fields couldn't really take off as a passer, had to use his legs so much. So I was just wondering what everyone's thoughts on the offensive line was before we wrapped it up.
Shells can't wait to get after this one.
Yeah. Well, I know there have been a couple of clips of Jordan Love's preseason performance yesterday going around the internet. And what I noticed on the 2 throws were not his ball placement, but how much flipping time he had. I mean, the pockets were like chef's kiss. Both of those, he had a long pocket for a long or a big pocket for a long time. You guys know I'm still in show me mode for the traditional, pass blocking. I think they do a lot of great things on the offensive line, run blocking, screen blocking. They get out in space and can do a lot of great things. But until I see them consistently hold up against sustained pass rushing, I'm going to be nervous.
We're seeing great things. I mentioned it earlier. I think Leatherwood, Borum, Kramer have all had good camp. Carter have all had really good camps, and I see some development in those players. There's not been a single thing that Darnell Wright has done to lower his stature in my mind. He has only elevated his value on this team so far. Now, obviously, week 1 versus Green Bay, that's go time. But his pass sets are so good. His ability to use his feet are so good. I'm impressed with him. Getting a little concerned. We've got 2 injuries at center right now. I hope that doesn't become a continual gaping hole that we're having to deal with that went unaddressed. Just last thing I would say, as I mentioned earlier, I really just think well, I mentioned it last time. It's going to take a while to develop the offensive line, so I won't repeat myself from last week.
Yeah, it would have been nice if the starters and Darnell Wright would have played yesterday, I thought, especially for Wright's sake. Like, he could have used those reps at right tackle. But I really thought that the offensive line has looked solid. And again, the caveat, they are going against backups, especially the first team last week. But they did allow 4 sacks yesterday. You had to think about when the game was. You mentioned Larry Borum. He was one of the top graded PFF guys from yesterday. I mean, and I was thinking back, I'm like, I didn't really notice Larry Borum all that much, but that was a good thing because he was actually winning his matchups. The one guy, I have no idea why he's still on this team, is Aviante Collins. There's 2 games now that he's just been god awful. He just can't contain his block. I mean, guys are, beating him inside all the time. I just don't, he doesn't offer anything to me. I thought Leatherwood had a decent day. Kramer looked better than he did, I think, against the Titans yesterday. So that was good to see. With some of those injuries, you want to make sure that those younger players can actually have those reps and you can feel somewhat comfortable with them going into a game, because I was thinking about this earlier today. I'm pretty sure the last time the Bears started all 5 guys on the offensive line for every single game was 10 years ago, 2013. It hasn't happened since. So guys are going to be, whether it's injuries, whether it's poor play, guys are going to be shuffling in and out of that lineup. So you need to make sure that at least the depth guys are capable of doing something there. And then last thing I'll say, I kind of posed a question on Twitter earlier today. I'd call it a hunch, but I really think Lucas Patrick's days are done. He hasn't played he hasn't practiced in 2 weeks plus. He's had an injury. And if my math is correct, I'm pretty sure he's missed more practices than he's played since he's been a Bear, especially when going back to training camp when he had the thumb injury last year and now going in and out of whatever the hell he's dealing with now. So I just wouldn't be surprised if he's waived with an injury designation. Cody Whitehair's the starter. Doug Kramer's the backup. And then you have some versatility with guys like Jatari Carter, maybe Leatherwood. Dieter Iceland maybe is another guy that could.
That guy has 9 lives, man. Holy cow.
He's always around, but he can play when he needs to. So yeah, overall pretty solid.
Waiver priority, Brendan? They have waiver priority. They have waiver priority too, don't they? The Bears. So I mean,
so that's the big thing.
Yeah.
They have the top spot, and they will have it for the first few weeks of the season. So this is probably going to be a really active cut down period. And also remember, this year's the first time that there are no, I guess, designated cuts throughout the preseason. In the years past, guys, they would go down from like 90 to 84 or something. So slowly but surely, guys would kind of trickle out. Now it's just one cut. So there's going to be more guys available for that final cut down than there ever has been before.
All right, boys, let's do this. Let's hit me up with anything that we have missed. And if we haven't missed anything, feel free to take a pass on this one. So let's go Shells, Thomas, Jack, and Brennan.
I'll just say Kramer as the backup center makes me really nervous. So I hope that doesn't come to pass. But no, I don't think we missed anything. I looking forward to next week, see who plays, who doesn't. But other than that, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think we missed much. I'll look forward to seeing more of the starters perform hopefully next week and see Fields in there again. But no, I can't think of anything we missed.
I do think it's a little unfortunate because he's had a long and prestigious career, but boy, our guy Halbarkish, he's just, as we've said before, he's lost it.
What'd he do now?
I mean, he's
Woof.
just fastball. He was just griping about the Bears not playing any of their starters, and Kansas City Chiefs this and that, and I just he was great for a long time. I'll keep it positive here at the end, but I think unfortunately he has lost his fastball, and indirectly, I guess maybe not so related, but episode 2 of Hard Knocks was better than episode 1, but we did see the true colors of our guy Aaron Rodgers flash for just a minute. Ryan, if you haven't seen it, when you see it, when you watch it, message me.
I got you.
We know who he is.
I still haven't watched it. I need to. It's on my list. I like it. Yeah,
I usually do too, but
yeah. Look, I'll just say I do kind of agree that I thought the Bears starters should have played at least one series, especially only because of the issues that they supposedly had in full team drills. Everybody said Fields and the offense were incredible in 7-on-7s, but they struggled in 11-on-11s. I mean, that's a game. So why not give him a few more reps against that same defense to just let him work some stuff out? I'm not as mad about it, especially if they do play the starters next week, but I just wish I would have seen it. And then the only other thing I wanted to note was with Khalil Herbert being out, Deontay Foreman got the start. Didn't do too much. He had 3 carries for 12 yards, averaging 4 yards, if you can do math. That's not bad. And he had a nice run where he broke 4 tackles. I thought it was interesting that listening to Shell's favorite writer, Dane Wiederer, he kind of said maybe if there's a numbers game issue with the running back position, perhaps Deontay Foreman could be a surprise cut. And I was kind of half thinking that over the last couple of weeks, there could be somebody, because if Roschon Johnson does the things Deontay Foreman does, and you have Khalil Herbert, he's just got more open space speed, and then Travis Homer being a special teams guy, there could be something where somebody ends up being the odd man out. And I don't think it's going to happen, but I thought that was a very curious statement to make. So, but Deontay Foreman looked pretty good, so I thought that was decent.
I literally have it
on Fields too.
What
did Wiederer blame that potential cut on Fields? Do you know?
He probably did. No.
So I literally have in my notes that even with only those few carries, that Deontay Foreman is a beast, and I am excited to watch him and Roschon in this running back room. I think the fact that he got limited carries kind of speaks to the fact that they know what he can do and they like him. I also thought that, I know we're so excited about DJ Moore. We're excited about the resurgence of Chase Claypool, Darnell, or Mooney being healthy. But this is a football team that should continue to run the football, and they have a stable of phenomenal running backs. Oh, and they have Justin Fields. So yeah, I strongly disagree with Mr. Wiederer on that one. I see where you guys are coming from, but there's no way. 2 other things, just really quick. Travis Bell, Zach Pickens, and Javon Dexter saw some flashes. Nothing great, but I saw some flashes that I really, really liked about all those guys. And Jack Sanborn, too. I think he's learning a new position of a linebacker, but I also think he also flashed some stuff that I was really excited about. Boys, this has been a fun episode. It is time to get out of here. It's time to give shout outs to anybody that might be listening to the podcast, anybody that you might like to give a shout out to. So for this, let's stick with it. Let's go Sheldon, Thomas, Jack, Brendan, and I will finish it up. Shout outs, boys.
I've got one. It's somebody who's near and dear to our heart. A very happy birthday to the one and the only Logan Bradley. We really miss you, bud. Miss your musk. Got to get you back on here soon, even if it's just to say hello, to see your face, to wave, see what kind of mustache you're working with. I gotta see a little something. So
it's pretty serious.
Happy birthday! Dude. Is it serious?
It is a serious mustache. Yeah.
You gotta see it.
I'm hoping that the schedule works out, that him and Brendan can do the pregame episodes, because I actually listen to their fantasy advice and I listen to their betting advice. So I'm very anxious to hear that.
Well, I don't have anyone specific to shout out. I just want to shout out, I guess, everyone for listening to the podcast and giving us a great audience and supporting us. So that will be my shout out for today.
Well, thanks for joining us, Thomas. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Good to have you.
Fun
man.
being here. Yeah. I enjoyed it.
I just went over 1,600 followers on Twitter, so I want to thank every single person who follows me, every bot, every porn star, every fake account, every one of you. It means the world to me. So no, but for real, I really do appreciate it. I want to shout out retired NFL official Terry McAuley, who tweeted at me in the wake of that screen pass controversy. It said to me, so actual NFL official Terry McAuley, Jack, you need to stop. You're embarrassing yourself. He tweeted. So thank you, Terry. Now I know the rule. I appreciate that very much.
He didn't actually say that.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
No, I thought he said like, this is wrong or something.
Bad take or something.
Yeah.
No, he said hashtag bad takes and reposted what I tweeted originally, but then he tweeted directly at me and said what I just said.
Oh, Jesus.
You're embarrassing yourself.
Wow.
I know, right?
Terry taking shots.
Right?
The
And then
funny thing was, Jack, when you tweeted that or sent it to us, I spent 5 minutes scrolling through that guy's Twitter history to just double check that it was actually him and that it was actually like, he was any football stuff. And all he tweeted about was music stuff.
Yeah.
No football takes whatsoever, but he decided to come after you.
I know. But I mean, I think like you said, I think it was actually because like, who followed him?
Like Tirico and a lot of the Mike Pereira.
Yeah. So I think maybe he's trying to distance himself. So your point is a good one. Why, why he came out of his music shroud to to take a shot at me. Okay. All right.
I have a new lifelong enemy. So
yeah. Thank you. No,
I've got Jay Feely. You've got Terry McAuley.
So shout out to Terry McAuley, and then to Mark Wimkin, who's a new follower of mine, and also has a pod, I believe, called Roto Bros, and he's at Mark Wemken, Wemken.
Before I get into my actual shout outs, I wanted to shout out, I believe his name is Ramon George. Brian, I don't even know if you saw this because you were watching it truncated, but for those who didn't see, this was the head ref who was making calls yesterday, and it was bad.
That was terrible.
Did you hear it? Did you see it?
He's like, is this the play? That's the penalty.
Holding, the offense, number 70. It was bad, and I know Adam Amin, great guy. He was like, look, he's learning. This is his first year, they call him the white hat, being the guy who makes the calls. That was, God help us all if we get him for a game, because
He needs a pep talk.
Yeah.
Confidence.
badly.
Ooh, yeah. So, but shout out to him, I guess. Shout out to my buddy Ty and his wife Hannah. They are expecting a beautiful baby in early 2024. So
let's go.
Yeah, big fans of the podcast. They've had a lot of life changes over the last year. So shout out to them. Shout out to my boy Kyle. You can find him on Twitter at The Last As Guardian. We're trying to watch some games together, but I gotta say, I love it. I love doing what I do, but writing makes it much harder to watch games with people just because of the responsibilities. So hoping to get together with him. But huge Bears fan. One of my closest friends for a long time, and he's a listener to the podcast. And then a couple of people on Twitter, somebody who I've gone back and forth with a little bit the last few days, just, I don't know, popped up in my mentions. Jedi Master Beasticles, obviously big Star Wars fan, but he's had some pretty good football takes, so it's been fun interacting with him. And I got to shout out my boy Rocky Bear 5134, one of our favorite followers, had some nice things to say about a recent thing I did. Just awesome dude, even though he voted for Roy in Bears Twitter Madness a few months ago instead of me. I don't hold grudges, but I remember. But no, shout out to Rocky Bear. He's my guy, and I appreciate just all the support.
My first one goes to Thomas. Thomas, good luck in your sports journalism at Ohio University. That is so freaking cool, and we're cheering for you big time over here at the podcast. My next one goes to Jorge Gagiola of Fanaticosos. I think that I'm saying the name of that last one right. Jorge, please don't be too mad. But he and I have had some back and forth, and I know that he does some work for some of our Spanish-speaking Bears fans, and I just think that is the coolest thing in the world. And just every time we go back and forth on Twitter, it's always a good time. So thank you so much to you. The PA Bears fan just goes by PA Bears fan. We've also had some really good back and forth, and of course, cousin Heidi. You're amazing. We love you. And I don't know how many more times that we can possibly say that. For all of us here at the Bear Down Chicago podcast, we know that you can get your Bears content anywhere, but you've chosen to hang out with us, and we appreciate it so very much. So for Logan Bradley, Thomas from Cubs Legion, please check it out. Please on Instagram, you got to check that out. Patrick Sheldon, Jack Wright, Brendan Shagrew. I am Ryan Dangle, folks. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And as always, folks, Bear Down Chicago.
So long.